We're recording then? Okay. The meeting is called to order. This is an emergency board meeting to discuss the sand overwash. Particularly, I think, Dan, you can do the roll call and then we'll open it up.
Sure. In attendance, we have Chairman Sylvia, Vice Chairman Renee Baville, Treasurer Kyle, and Linda Laird.
Hello, everybody.
See Bob Walter.
Dan, you want to open it up to public comments?
Sure. If anybody would like to make a public comment regarding this matter, please indicate so by raising your hand. I have one hand. I'm trying to find where it is. Jojo Yodak.
Yes.
Hey, Renee.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
I'm not real good at this tech stuff. I'm a developer for natural resource beach reclamation, and I don't want to get involved in the meeting, but I have a remedy for you guys that I'd like to get to you as soon as possible. I have parts of New Orleans that can solve your problem and save you a bunch of money and get it done quickly. Mm-hmm. That's all I got to say, and I'm not trying to sell you. I'm trying to give you a remedy. I can help you guys right now.
Yeah, Dan would be the one to contact, right, Dan? How would he get a hold of you? You want to give him your number?
I think best would be email. My email is the letter D, my last name, MUNT, at mycepd.com.
And what would, Dan, what was the email again? D and what, how do you spell your last name?
MUNT.
Month.
Okay, I got it. Thank you, Dan.
You got it all?
Yes.
Thanks for your time, folks. I'll be down there in a couple of days.
Thank you.
Okay, Daniel, do you want to go over this issue with sand overwash and what, if anything, you found out about this sand that was removed in the last few days, and what, if anything, we know from SCCF about this?
Okay, yes. As you all are aware, there's a large amount of sand that lines Captiva Drive. This meeting is called to move forward in recovery efforts. The county has proposed to remove all sand from county roads and a first push into non-county maintained roads, which is basically opening up a path under their existing contract at no cost to the CEPD. That sand would be transported to a landfill and treated as hurricane debris. To go to your second point, there was a rumor that was going that there was sand removed from Leica and Whiteman lanes and potentially pushed into the dunes. We've made contact with Sheriff Mike Sawicki, who's out there, who said that that's not the case, that there's been no sand placed on the dunes, but he will keep watch of that. It's important that, especially to those listening in the audience, that we don't just go taking the sand that's been washed and placed right back on the sand without treating it and ensuring that it meets the standards, that there's no debris in it. I'm continuing to try to find out more regarding Leica and Whiteman lanes. But for now, definitely the sand with the overwash sand, which is the discussion point of this meeting. In a perfect world, if we knew the sand was free of glass, construction materials, and contaminants, we could definitely sort the sand. But given the time constraints and trying to hurry the island to recovery, the lack of a acceptable staging area at this point, price and availability to sift and sort the sand, my recommendation is to move forward with the county's proposal to treat the sand as hurricane debris and have it removed. We received a quote when we did our beach nourishment to sift the sand to screen it for unacceptable material, which was roughly $9 a cubic yard, and to haul away said material if it was found to be unsatisfactory was over $62 a cubic yard. Given the extent of damage. I'm not sure how much debris is there, but the sand price that we paid to place the sand was $16 a cubic yard. So I think just looking at it from that standpoint, I would recommend to move forward with removing the sand and just placing additional sand if needed, depending on what the survey from Aptum concludes.
Okay, so Vice Chair Maville, would you like to comment? Is Vice Chair Maville available?
I don't see him in the panelist section. There is a hand raised. You may have dropped and come back. I'm trying to look through.
Okay, so let's move forward with Treasurer Pyle.
I would go along with Daniel's recommendation that we have Lee County move forward with the removal of the sand.
Commissioner Laird,
Hi, this is Commissioner Laird. I've spoken extensively with Nicole Sharp, our Aptum expert. And although I keep wanting to figure out ways to be able to use the sand on our dudes, I agree with Daniel and Nicole's recommendation to move expeditiously and remove the sand.
let me ask if before Commissioner Ville comes back, has anyone heard from SCCF?
I've been in daily discussions with Carrie. They're well, Carrie is along the same lines of thinking of what we are from speaking to her.
Yeah, because I'm thinking that they're probably the most interested group in this sand issue, because basically the sand is going to impact perhaps the turtles. So they would have the biggest vested interest in this issue. And Dan, you're saying that they're okay with your proposal?
I've not heard any objection. I've had ad-lib conversations with Carrie Schumann regarding that.
Okay. And
I-
let me
this is-
just ask one more time, is Vice Chair Maville available?
He is.
Okay.
I'm here, but
Okay.
if you're gonna do a vote, you've got to do it quick because I don't know how long it's gonna last. It's really bad, the reception here.
Dan, could you
Did
restate
anyone-
your proposal, Dan, and so we can get a motion?
Yes, I'd be asking for a motion from the board to allow the county to remove the sands from the county roads under their existing contract at no cost to CEPD and to be treated as hurricane debris.
Do I have a second?
Someone's got to make the actual motion. I can't make the motion myself.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion.
Okay, so Linda wants to make the motion. Treasurer Pyle, will you do the second?
Second,
Okay. Dan, you want to call a roll?
Do you want to allow public comment before you take the vote?
Okay, I did not see that on the agenda. Okay, any
Right.
public comments before we call the vote?
I have a hand raised from Holly McGreevy.
Holly, you can unmute and then ask your question or make your statement. Oh, go ahead, Holly.
See, Holly is unmuted, but I'm not hearing any comments.
Holly, do you want to type your comment in on the Zoom? You can try typing it in. We can't hear you. You might not have a microphone on your computer.
Okay, let's move forward with that. Have Holly, if you can type that in and we can move forward to Robert Hensley. Allowed to talk.
Yes, the question is, will this require another renourishment if we haul away the sand?
The hauling away the sand will not impact whether or not we need another nourishment. Currently, our engineers are out surveying the beach. They're set to begin tomorrow to determine and quantify the actual amount of sand loss. If we remove this sand it may be a negligible amount in the grand scheme of things, and we would have already been under contract for mobilization and other fees. This would just simply be an additional cubic yard cost. So the grand scheme answer is it wouldn't affect whether or not we need a full another nourishment or not. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, sir.
Dan, are there any more hands raised?
I am seeing none. I do not see anything in the chat from Holly.
So Attorney Brooks, can we call for a vote?
You may.
One moment, I do see that Bob Walter just joined in.
Okay,
Let's add him as a panelist.
I just sent the invite.
and Commissioner Walters, welcome to speak whenever he is available.
If Dan, if you could explain the issue that's on the table when he gets in.
I will. Bob also is well aware of the issue. He's the one that first approached me with this item as well. And
Bob may be actually out on the island, so he may be having trouble with the reception.
it looks like he's dropped out. I do have another hand raised from David Mintz if you'd like to allow him to speak, Chairman.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take David Mintz's.
All right, David.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. My concern is simple. I was advised, and again, I was only advised this, so I didn't see it with my own eyes, but I was advised that a backhoe, which was being manned by someone from either Sanibel or Crowder Gulf, it had a Crowder Gulf name on it and a Sanibel name on a backhoe, that was at the end of Whiteman Lane, pushing the sand, attempting to push the sand back onto the beach. There's a great deal of sand at the beach 1/3 of Whiteman Lane. I believe it's also on Micah, but I know Whiteman for sure because I did see that. And the backhoe was attempting to push its way, from what I was told, through the sea grapes and through the vegetation at the end of the street and to deposit it at the end of that street. Again, I wasn't there, so I can only relate what I was told. So my concern is this. I just spoke with Lieutenant Sawicki, and I also spoke with the fire chief. And neither the fire chief nor the deputy sheriff is working directly with Crowder Gulf in terms of the sand or the debris removal effort on Captiva. They're not point people. So, and if Bob Walter is on, I'd like to know whether he is actually in communication directly with Crowder Gulf in terms of the cleanup on Captiva. If he isn't, and if the sheriff isn't, and if the fire chief isn't, then I think, Daniel, we need to figure out who can assist and be a point person working with Crowder Gulf on Captiva to make sure that whatever actions they're taking in terms of debris cleanup and sand removal is consistent with the community's needs. So one of the community needs, for example, would not be to destroy vegetation and dune plantings, et cetera. And I just don't know if anyone has taken responsibility for that at this point. And if Bob's on the call, maybe he can speak to that also.
Bob has rejoined.
David, let me ask you to clarify.
Can you
So
guys hear me?
the argument is you're gonna take.
I can hear you, Bob Walter.
So someone
Can I
is
speak?
taking the sand and trying to push it through the little pathway back onto the beach. And then second, Dan, how does this comport with your comment, your conversation with the sheriff?
Let's recognize the commissioner. Bob Walter has joined the meeting for the minutes.
Okay,
Thank you, Ralph.
David, you want to comment on that first question? And Dan, you want to comment on your conversation with the sheriff?
Yeah, my understanding was that the backhoe was attempting to push the sand back to the beach at the end of Whiteman Lane, which you're very familiar with, John. And in the process of doing that, began to break some of the trunks of the sea grapes that kept the path narrow. It was attempting to force its way through. Again, I wasn't there, so I didn't see it myself. This is what I was told by someone who was on the scene. That person who was on the scene asked the person who was driving the tractor to stop doing that and not to disturb and break the sea grapes at the end of the street. So that's what I've been told. And so, again, I can't tell you that's accurate other than that's what I was told by someone who was right there. But my concern is, John, that there'll be a lot of these issues that may arise over time with the removal of sand and the cleanup on Captiva. And I just don't know if anyone is assigned from Captiva to assist or work with or give advice or guidance to Craddock Gulf, who is in the process of removing the sand and doing the cleanup. My only concern is that there's someone that can sort of oversee this process and make sure that it's being done consistent with the needs of Captiva. And that's why Bob has been very helpful in doing a lot of this coordination. I just don't know if this is one of the responsibilities he's taken on for himself.
Dan, your comment, and then we'll go to Commissioner Walter.
So that's definitely something to look further into. It's different from what I've heard from Sheriff Sawicki this morning through third party. I do have the contact information for Douglas Whitehead, who's leading from the county's perspective with Crowder Gulf. So I will follow up with him following the meeting. But that's something further to look into if they are destroying mangroves or placing sand illegitimately back on the beach, then we'll follow up with different measures from there. I would assume first contact would be DEP.
This also covers, I think, the native vegetation, the sea grapes.
Mhm. And Bob Walter is on the line. I've allowed him to speak. I don't think it's allowing him to promote the panelists, but he can speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Bob.
Thank you. Okay, let me start backwards. First of all, the reason we're having the meeting today is the fact that last week I did meet with the county, and this is one of the topics that they brought up. And they emphatically understand that if we don't want to put the sand back on the beach via sift method and all the time it takes to do that, that they will remove it to the landfill. They know 100% clear that it does not go back on the beach. They understand that they have zero jurisdiction over it. And I find it hard to believe that Crowder's doing that, since Saturday was my first call with them, and on site at South Seas yesterday was the first time they walked the property. I'm actually on my way now to Captiva. I should be there about 45 minutes. I can verify everything I'm hearing, but I don't think Crowder's that quick to put everything together, frankly.
This is Dick. I did see the front end loader. We were on Leica yesterday for about 5 hours, and the front end loader came down Leica, and there was a pickup behind it, a dark, like a black pickup, and then I just heard him rustling around at the end of Leica, moving things. I did not walk all the way down there. I should have, but we were under some time pressure. But I can confirm that there was a front end loader moving things around at the end of Leica. And I didn't hear a lot of tree cracking or anything like that. But we've got to make sure now this Douglas guy, is he with the county and he's interacting?
Doug Whitehead is the director of waste, basically. I'm sorry, I can't think of his official title off the top of my head. And I've been dealing with Doug, and I've been dealing with Glenn Salyer, assistant county manager.
So he's the guy. He's the guy responsible for the county side. And I agree with David. We should at least have somebody. And I would suggest that it be Daniel, that he be informed anytime they're thinking about doing something with the sand.
So gentlemen, may I suggest that Bob communicate to Dan sometime this afternoon when he gets down there, what exactly the status of this whole situation is, and if there has been some action in terms of moving the sand to the beach, that Dan contact Douglas Whitehead and move forward with some remedial actions. It strikes me, I don't know if David Mintz is still on, that it would be incredible that someone with a backhoe would just go through the path to the beach. I mean, that just seems so strange that you
Yeah,
on yourself to do that.
I am still on. Can you hear me, John?
Yeah.
Okay, I think what Mike Zwicky said and what was told to me may be consistent, because the gentleman who was driving what Dick called the loader or the backhoe, whatever, was stopped by the resident on the street and told him not to continue to break through the sea grapes at the end to deposit sand towards the beach. So that person was stopped. That person did not fully understand the resident because there was a language barrier, but that particular vehicle had Crowder Gulf and Sanibel's name on it, or he had a Crowder Gulf shirt or something, because the individual who I spoke with asked me, what's Crowder Gulf? And so there was somebody out there, Bob Walter, there was somebody out there from either Sanibel or Crowder Gulf yesterday. So they're obviously moving fast, and that's very good. It just seemed, I just want to make sure that whoever's driving the machinery understands what they should and shouldn't do. And maybe they do, and I'm sure Doug Whitehead is terrific, but I'm not sure the person who was sitting on the machinery understood the direction. That's all.
So again, Commissioner Walter, will you report to Dan this afternoon on what you say? And Dan, can you pursue with Douglas Whitehead any remedial action or, again, preventive advice to anyone operating a backloader that we need to not move things to the beach?
Yes, I will call Doug after this call myself, but are we in
Thank you,
the
Bob.
middle of a vote?
We are. There's a motion on the floor.
Yeah. Shall we move ahead with the motion on the floor then?
Dan, you want to repeat the motion?
Yes, the motion is to allow the county to remove the debris or the sand that lines the county maintained roads as hurricane debris.
Okay, we had a second. So Dan, you want to call for the vote?
Yes, Chairman Sylvia,
Aye, and I understand I got a text from Renee that he's having difficult communicating, and he said aye.
I received that text as well. Treasurer Pyle,
Yes,
Commissioner Walter,
Yes,
and Commissioner Laird.
Yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously.
So moving on to commissioner comments. I guess one of the issues that I get from this meeting is we are all in a very difficult position because none of us actually currently can live on Captiva. I'm not sure. I know that we have water at our home, but the rest of the utilities I'm not sure about. Does anyone have any ideas on how we can best monitor what's going on the island, since none of us actually live there?
I think Bob Walter's going to be out there quite a bit.
yeah, I do updates every week, and we had 3 times a week, we had a call that we had over 100 people on. So, and that information gets passed over to the community panel's website. It gets distributed amongst the community panel and the civic association. So those updates will continue. But I can tell you right now, power is moving at a rapid pace. We have probably half the resort powered up at South Seas. Water is pretty much everywhere at South Seas, but turning it on is a controlled environment, as will be power. So if you do not have a way to get back to your residence, in order to get water and power to your residences, you're going to have some representation when they're ready to turn those sources back on. But it's moving rapidly. I mean, I've never seen so many power trucks in my life.
Bob, what do you mean some representation? Someone has to be there on the ground, on Captiva when they turn it on, or?
It's not as, Sanibel was very, very strict. We are at the point where we're asking people to, if there's any concern about a power line or something feeding into a house, eventually that line will come back and be repaired. But they're highly recommending, they're not insisting, but they're highly recommending that someone be at the house when water and power get turned back on, just because, listen, if you've ever done this before, you go out and you turn on a faucet, and you're like, oh, that's right, the water's off. And then you forget to turn it off and you run out of your house. So you've got those issues. And then if there's no noticeable damage to the infrastructure of electrical as it comes in the house, probably are no issues at all. But everybody wants to err on the side of caution, is just recommending the representation be there.
So
That's
Bob, Commissioner Walton, let me ask you, with respect to monitoring activities with respect to the beach, do we have anyone out there who's looking at what's going on with the beach and the sand on a daily or 3 times a week basis?
That would be a question for Daniel.
Dan?
We do not have anybody on a daily or 3 times a week basis out there currently now.
I expect to be moving in a few days. I don't know if you want me walking around, but I expect to be moving in a few days, assuming the septic is coming on at Sunset Captiva.
Well, certainly Commissioner Laird, I think we would all welcome the fact that if you in fact can get on and just walk the beach once a day to see what's going on, that would be a tremendous advantage for all of us.
I'd like to hear from Daniel on a daily or couple daily basis. He should be walking that, and I think you can get back and forth all right at this point, Daniel. Is that right?
They've opened the bridge, but I'm not sure the value that it would bring to have me out there on the beach every day. I'm not following.
Yeah, so maybe the first option is Commissioner Laird, who's going to be out there permanently, as soon as she can, just walk the beach once a day and keep us up to date on anything she sees as significant.
Dan, do you want to update them on the state of the office building?
Sure. John and I were able to get out to the island actually the day before the bridge opened up. The office building is very
Dan,
much.
can I
Yes.
interrupt for a minute? That's John Rieger, right?
Yes, John Rieger. Yes. We were able to get out to the island the day before the bridge opened up. The office building is very much intact. There may be a few small leaks forming. I've got to get a better look at those, but all the office equipment is intact. However, the beach vehicle appears to have been flooded out. I'm actually going out with the insurance adjuster on Wednesday to go evaluate those and look further into the clauses in our insurance contract to make claims towards that.
So basically, I certainly support Commissioner Laird's availability to look at the beach. I understand Dan's limitations on travel. Dan, I suspect from your comment, we are sometime in the future going to look at an appropriation for repairing or buying a new vehicle. Is that correct?
Yes, we had previously through the TEC, we had a grant to trade in our vehicle and they would cost share with us. However, we've got to definitely look at what we're able to claim on that for insurance and make an evaluation and best decision moving forward with that.
Okay.
Dan and Bob, do you have a status on the internet on the island? Is there internet available? Are there options?
There's wireless, but there's no internet.
Okay.
Are there any other commissioner comments before we adjourn?
Just to be clear, I'm not going to be able to do the 12-mile walk up and down the beach every day. I'll do parts from South Seas down probably through or into the Twin Waters stretch. I'll be glad to do that.
I don't think that the beach is going to change that much from day to day. We do have a survey crew from Aptum that's going to be evaluating and providing a numerical value to the sand loss and moving forward that way. So we will have eyes on the beach periodically to update. But just my concern will be duplicating efforts that are already being made through Bob Walter's crew and distributed. I think having multiple sources of information that may be conflicting at times might be confusing to the public.
So what are you saying, Dan? You think Linda does not, Commissioner Laird does not have to walk the beach?
I wouldn't preclude her from doing so, but I don't think it would be a requirement to do so. I would stay out of the water, though.
Well, to me, any help we can get is great. So I'll take whatever we can get, Commissioner Laird.
And I think that if there are people, I think we're into the, if you see something, say something and let Daniel know what you see. Because up in the Gold Coast area, I'm not getting up that high for sure. So if there's people who are walking, you see something odd, let the CEPD know.
I think especially if anybody sees any signs of maybe dead fish or anything appearing, any signs of red tide is definitely something, please let me know as quick as possible so I can distribute that information as well.
That would be my biggest concern, Daniel, just that. Red tide.
Okay.
And this is John. I just wanted to take a moment. While anybody's out, if there's anything you witness, I just kind of want to remind everybody, CEPD is not an enforcement agency. So please just pass the word up and we'll make sure everything gets handled and taken to the right authorities.
Thank you, John.
Are we all set then, commissioners?
Move to adjourn.
Okay, so let's move to adjourn. Dan, do we need a vote to adjourn? Or we just,
You're under your authority, you're allowed to adjourn if there's no further business.
we are adjourned. Thank you very much, commissioners.
Thank you all. Thank you, Dan, especially. Bye-bye.
Can you